Hey Ubers, welcome to episode 2 of Gratitude Friday. I know it's Saturday, I apologize, but I promise I had a really good, valid reason for coming out late with this video. This week I'm using the Floral Flair stamp set from Fiskars again. I just love it. I embossed with Colorbox white pigment ink and clear embossing powder for this piece. I was just playing around and I did it on a piece of dark brown thick cardstock, and I just loved the effect. For this week's card, we're also going to be using some Organdy ribbon. It's a very, very light pink, and we're going to be using this quite a bit. I'm so excited to show you my take on what's really hot right now, Chevron stripe. So I was thinking, oh well, maybe I'll do it next week, but I just can't wait to show you what I've done. So I have a dark maroon white core cardstock, and I believe this one is from DCWV, their Brights pack. And I'm putting it into an embossing folder from Cuttlebug. It's called Forest Branches, and I'm sending it through my Sizzix Big Shot machine. This week is going to be very much about texture, and we're really going to be playing up this Asian theme, because I felt like that stamp set very much talked to me of Japanese culture. And you know, I was thinking a little bit more about the cherry blossoms. I'm just putting a sanding block on top of that to expose the white core. The cherry blossoms, and how appropriate that flower is for card makers, because a lot of times, you know, these cards are meant to commemorate a moment or moments that we've shared together, which, you know, can easily be forgotten because, you know, perhaps they've been brief or memory fails us. Anyway, this is a piece of gradient paper from SEI's Couture stack that I picked up recently. I cut it into 1-inch strips, and those are about 1 inch by 5.5 inches. So that's from one sheet, and I could make several cards using this technique. So I'm adhering it to some scrap paper. This is my scrap pad, and I'm going to lay down one stamp from that set all across these 3 strips. So I'm going to adhere the stamp to my acrylic block. So this is the set. So beautiful. I'll put up a link so you can click the link to see the other card I made with this same stamp set. And I'm using Colorbox pigment ink in copper. I got this ink pad months and months ago, and it still works. So I'm really happy, because I've gotten other brands of pigment ink, and they have been dried out the second that I opened them, which is very disappointing. But this Colorbox ink is great, and I just picked up a pad of white pigment ink from Colorbox, and it's really juicy, and I'm hoping it'll last me a long time. So I'm just arranging the stamp on these 3 strips of paper, which will become the focal image of my card, in sort of a random way, but trying to make sure that there are no big gaps. Oh, and yes, folks, I am in my penguin PJs. The day I made this, which was yesterday, which was Friday, you know, I was so excited to come downstairs and start the card that I didn't change out of my PJs. And I am in the fortunate situation in life right now where I can wear my PJs all day if I want to. Anyway, so I'm so thankful for that. Gratitude Friday, gratitude. So I'm sprinkling some fine, clear embossing powder on top of that. And I believe that's from Ranger. And I'm going to remove these strips of paper from my scrap pad. And I'm just tapping off the excess. If I had been thinking a little bit more in advance, I would have rubbed my de-static pad on top of there before I started doing the stamping, but I forgot. So I'm just going to be really thorough about tamping the excess off. And I'm going to set my heat tool on that. And if you just heat up the heat tool a little bit before you put it onto the paper will warp less. I was a little bit concerned that this paper would warp because it's not that thick. It's not like the paper tray ink cardstock. But, surprisingly, it didn't warp at all. Here you have a close-up of how this works. This is not a blow dryer. This is the heat tool, and significantly hotter. And you can see it starts to glisten. And when it starts to glisten, you know it's done its job. And I always love the moment where that happens. It's like magic. And because this is not Versamark, it's not really sticky. It's somewhat sticky. It's not uniformly glistening. There are little bumps of glisten. And I actually like that. So if my ink pad were a little bit juicier, it would be more uniform, like that little strip that I showed you at the beginning of the video. But this is just fine. It's very subtle, which goes along with how I want this card to be. So I rearranged my strips so that the images line up and are intact. And I cut with those dimensions. So that top strip was 3/4 of an inch and 1/4 inch in height. I just snipped it so that it was that width. The middle strip I left alone, and the bottom strip I cut into 1/2 inch widths. And now I'm just creating a diagonal edge and alternating with which direction the diagonal goes in, so that we start playing on this Asian chevron. Okay. And I'm going to take my Organdy and I'm going to start wrapping it around each strip. And I'm going to wrap it generally in the center of each strip. And it's not going to be perpendicular, it's going to be also on a diagonal. And you want to put some snail along the back. And if you can see here, I'm wrapping the Organdy on a diagonal that's contrary to the diagonal that I cut. And you'll find that if you do make this card, you'll get into a rhythm with this. It actually did not feel very labor intensive. You can also, what I started to do with another card is just turn the strip of paper as well. And then just cut it so that the excess is hidden along the back. Okay, and I'm going to do that for each strip, sort of going a little bit off center so that, you know, it's just not going straight down the middle for all of them. But look at that beautiful sheen. It's just gorgeous. And this was a roll of Organdy ribbon that I got from Joann's. It was in their bargain bin. And it just looks so classy and elegant. And it reminds me of, I think it's called the Obi. I'm not Japanese, but that wide band that goes around the kimono, right at the waist. Um, So, and when you do wrap it, you want the edges of the ribbon to overlap just a little bit. Um, so that it's just, this is very transparent ribbon, but it's a little bit more translucent where the overlap happens. And you want to do that for the other three. And then I'm just realigning them to make sure that my stamping pattern is still intact. And I'm realizing that I don't like that bare edge, so I'm using my Fiskars paper trimmer to cut off that excess along the edges. The embossing folder wasn't large enough to handle the size of this piece of cardstock. So when I ultimately cut it down, that maroon piece of cardstock measured 4.5 inches by 3 7/8 inches. And I'm setting that purple gradient strip right in the middle, and then I'm working up and down from there. Making sure to have just a space between each strip that's pleasing to me. I want to be able to see those twigs in the background. And so you can see, it's not the real blatant chevron stripes that I see on some pattern papers that are newly available. I was following some of the CHA show in Anaheim that just happened, and chevron stripes were everywhere. I love them, but they're very bold. This is a lot more subtle, and I'm just so excited. I'm so excited to try this out with other ribbons. And you can see all the different textures. It's a very rustic texture in the background. And those strips make a very elegant type of texture in the front. I'm going to adhere this down to my card base, which is black cardstock. And I think that's really going to make all these colors pop and really play up this Asian theme. And I want to thank, I think it's Generator74 on YouTube, because she's been communicating with me on YouTube and very generously offered her advice on how to make this ATG, Scotch ATG adhesive dispenser work better. So thank you. I think I'm getting better thanks to your advice. And I'm just taking a scrap of the black card base because I had to cut that down. The card base was ultimately, when folded, 4 inches high by 4 7/8 inches wide. So you're actually going to cut a piece that's 8 inches by 4 7/8. And I'm cutting a half circle out of black. I used my Martha Stewart circle cutter, which I kind of labor with also. It's not very easy to use. And I'm just putting my copper stamp pad right on top of there. So I felt like that half circle shape could somehow represent a setting sun. And I set my heat tool on there because this pigment ink takes a while to dry, so I wanted to just speed that up a little bit. Precious Memories is the sentiment from the same stamp set. I'm using the white Colorbox pigment ink to put that on there. I was looking all over for something that would say Moments, because I think that would have been a more appropriate sentiment. But this'll do. And I'm setting the heat tool on that as well. I think if you have time, it would be better even if you could just let a couple of hours pass because it still wasn't quite dry, and I smudged it a little bit as I was finishing up the card. So I thought I'd put that on dimensionals, and as I was about to set the that final piece down at the bottom center of my card, I realized that I would prefer this card even more if I could add another rustic element. This is some twine that I got from Home Depot before I, I broke down and made my order from the twinery. But it definitely has its uses. It reminds me of hay um, or wheat, um, and I think there are a lot of natural elements in this card, and it would add an extra level of texture. Um, and so I ended up sticking that down underneath my sentiment. Um, and it sort of goes with the rustic maroon piece in the back, but just so many different textures. I actually remember times when I've been at the beach and the ocean has been a deep indigo, and then there have been fields of wheat in front, that light beige color, and I'm thinking that might be an interesting color combination for another card that I make in the future. So this light, the exact same color for the twine with an indigo blue. So that may be something you guys can look forward to in the future. I'm really excited about the possibilities for that card. I'm so excited about this idea that I had, and to create chevron stripes out of ribbon. Um, and all of it happened just from playing around with my stash. Um, and, as I started to create these chevron stripes and pair them with the cherry blossoms, I was thinking um, about how amazed I've been when, admiring blossoms in my garden. Um, how some of them, when looked at under a certain angle of sunlight, possess a sort of otherworldly type of sheen. Um, so I really encourage all of you guys to play around with your ribbons. If you have any ribbons that are somewhat transparent, go ahead and try and make some chevron stripes with them. I think uh, it can create some nice geometry in your card. And this is definitely an Asian themed card, but I'm thinking, you could, um, this type of technique could have many other applications. Um, Definitely adding another element and level of texture in your cards. Um, and I think, as someone who definitely has creative urges and has a love and appreciation of art, sometimes the idea of, for me, making a painting or some other type of work of art feels very overwhelming and daunting. But with these cards, they're just so tiny and they're so manageable, and you know, if anything, you will please yourself and by making it, and hopefully please somebody else, your recipient. Um, and it has never felt too much of a task for me to just make a card. And because the pressure is off, I just have so much fun. Um, so I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I'm so excited that I came up with a novel idea here. I think it's novel. I haven't seen it anywhere else, and I've been watching the videos and visiting the blogs for quite a while. Um, I will be making posts and, writing about my adventures in crafting and art on my blog, and that's at contadinak.wordpress.com. And I think next week I'm going to have to limit the number of videos that I do because I really want to get started playing around with making some patterned papers from scratch. Um, so if I come up with anything nice, I'll definitely show that to you guys. But I'm going to be using my watercolors and my colored pencils, and I'm just really excited about that. So thank you so much for watching. This week was great. I got like 10 more subscribers. So please subscribe. It makes me so happy. And I'll see you next time. Bye.